I was in Beirut on a food assignment, and while I was there, it just so happened to be Ramadan, which is the Islamic month of fasting, where no one eats or drinks during daylight hours. I flew thousands of miles through multiple time zones to photograph one meal. My subjects were a group of 8 Iraqi men, refugees, who had all fled their home country, Iraq, during the war. They left their lives, their families, everything. The story was about how these 8 men would gather and cook the recipes of their home country, taught to them by their mothers when they were growing up. They shared these sacred meals like brothers. It was one of the only ways they remembered home. I had less than a day to photograph their story. I couldn't get more time. It was too risky for them to be associated with me, a journalist. If this were discovered, they would have been detained, possibly deported, back to Iraq where their lives would have been threatened, possibly killed. So in the market, I walked several feet behind them. I never took my camera outside of my bag when I was with them in public. And when we got to their apartment, I was really careful to keep a low profile. They spent the entire day preparing this meal that would break the Ramadan fast. The sun started to set, and throughout the neighborhood, we could hear the call to prayer. This was our cue that the meal could finally begin. Meticulously, the men started to create this canvas on the floor. This is where they would eat and share this meal. Taking plastic bags they cut in half, they laid them out like a mosaic. They slowly started to bring out the food. In my mind, I'd already started to plan this photograph. This was my one shot to get this meal. This was it. It had to be perfect. I positioned myself up on this ladder just slightly overhead so that I could see the men eating knee to knee. I was locked in, I was loaded. The men started to gather, kind of settle down, finally sit. And right before they started to eat, the entire room went black. I couldn't even see my hand in front of me. My interpreter yelled my name, "Penny, it's okay, it's okay, it's the electricity, it's just gone out. It's gone out in the entire neighborhood." I started to freak. This was my one chance at the photo, and it was gone. I couldn't put a flash on my camera. If I would have lit the scene with a strobe, there are watchmen on the rooftops, and anything suspicious like a burst of light from a window, within minutes, someone would have been at the door, we would have all been detained, and I would have put them at serious risk. That wasn't an option. This assignment was over. I was done. I lost the picture. And then in the corner of the room, I saw these 2 men with a lighter, and they found some candles, and they started to lay them out around the meal. And it set off this beautiful glow, this orange golden hue. It lit up their faces. It showed this mood. It gave this intimacy that I never could have imagined. It was perfect. That was the picture. That was the moment. You know, these men, I'm not really sure where their lives are today. But we shared this connection, this moment. I'm a food photographer. I've photographed food and food culture in over 30 countries. And what I've realized in photographing this subject is that food connects us like nothing else I have ever seen. It has the ability to peel away at all of our differences and help us find a common language. Food is the most honest and simple expression of who we are. I've had the privilege and honor of photographing these food moments all over the world. I had a moment with this woman, Flor, in East LA, who makes lamb barbacoa and sells it under the carport of her house. I spent one day with her and realized after that day that she'd never been noticed. No one had ever made her picture. No one had ever documented her process. She'd never been celebrated. I had a moment with these men. I was in India on an assignment. I was in a market. I saw these red coats, and I just started following them, jetting down alleys, around a corner into a tea stall where they took a break from their jobs and drank chai. And I had a moment with this family on the Mexican border who on the weekends stuffs their car with fruit and sells it at the flea market. Yeah, I photograph food. I'm a food photographer. But really, what I do is capture human moments. At the core of my work, I am inspired by and in love with that space where a scene almost vibrates with an energy. And when it's combined with light, composition, and color, that's when I make a picture of a moment. I've realized in the course of my career, there are three things that have helped me grow as a photographer and become the visual storyteller I am today. And it has nothing to do with the mechanics of the camera. It's about being open and present and vulnerable. Without those three things, I would have never seen these pictures. I wouldn't see them. That's what I'm talking about today, a moment. What a true moment is, and how they can happen in the tiniest connection, in the most random of street corners, and inside the dowdiest diner. You know, all of the different assignments my work can put me in doesn't prepare you for when a truly profound moment happens in your own life. I was on a shoot in the Basque Country when my brother called me to tell me that our mother's health had taken a turn for the worse and I should get home. I got on the next plane back to the States. When I got to my parents' house, I went straight to their room, and there was my mom with my dad, and my mom looked at me, and she smiled, and she looked at my dad, and she said, "Call the priest." She wanted to give her last confession. I immediately went to her side, and I said, "What can I do? Is there anything you need?" And she looked at me, and she said, "I'm hungry. Will you make me some chicken soup?" Of course. I went to the kitchen. I wanted to make it homemade. I finished making it. I poured it into 2 bowls, one for each of us, and I took it to her bedside. And I watched her take the first taste of the broth, and she just closed her eyes and sighed. We sat there, the two of us, eating the soup off of a TV tray. There was a thickness in the air. We didn't speak much. Inside my heart was breaking. We knew this was the last meal we would share together. The following day, surrounded by her children, a few of our relatives, and in the arms of my dad, she took her last breath. I believe there are some moments that aren't supposed to be photographed. They're supposed to be lived. And these are the moments that live in our mind's eye forever. I didn't photograph this one. I lived it fully. And I take it as a reminder every day to connect. Because if I'm not connecting, I'm not seeing. And if I'm not seeing, I'm not living. I did make one picture a few months ago. This is my dad visiting my mother's grave. This is what I've learned about moments. They happen all around us, all the time, everywhere, constantly. It's as simple as noticing someone walking down the sunny side of the street and seeing their shadow. Or it's as special as sitting at a meal with a group of Iraqi refugees and realizing there's no way in your life you could have ever sat there because of your gender, your nationality, and your job title. Or it's as profound as making the last meal for someone you love. There's this wonderful quote by this photographer, Mark Ribot. He says, taking pictures is savoring life intensely, every 100th of a second. I think that's just life. I ask all of you right here, right now, to see this moment. See it, really see it. You know, that's what life is. It's a collection of all these moments, some of them big, but most of them are really, really tiny, nuanced. And really living life, savoring life intensely, is about being open, present, and brave enough to really see those moments. Thank you.